It's going to be very personal. I'm reading it out. It's not prescripted. I'm reading it from my notes like that. I used to work in finance, in corporate up until 2011. At that point, I left. I found coaching. I retrained to be a life coach. I got certified as a life coach and started to pretty much change every area of my life. I wanted to make this video for one reason and one reason only. I think going through the process, the step-by-step process of what it looked like for me, which is the first time I've written it down like that, is going to be helpful for some of you. So there seems to be this tendency out there, and I fell into the same trap, that we can figure out what to do with our lives through various different mental exercises. And that is just not going to happen. There are a lot of tools out there and a lot of methods that can help you identify your strengths, but to imagine that you think about life and you think more about life and you think more about life and suddenly it just hits you and you get excited and okay, now I know what I'm supposed to be doing, now I can go and implement it, is ridiculous.
Life is not a mental exercise. You can't think up all the answers in your head.
I think it's very dangerous to think of life like that, because if you think this is a very neat, logical, linear process where I think about it more, and once I thought about it enough, it's just going to hit me so that now I have the goal and I can take the steps to get there, is so harmful, because in reality it's not going to be like it. So if I tell you that it's all going to be purple, full of unicorns, and you get there and there's no purple and there's no unicorns, you are going to think that you're doing it wrong. And in reality, life is a lot messier than this. It's not linear like that. There's absolutely no exercise on earth that will tell you what you're supposed to do with your life. It's just not going to happen. So I wanted to lift the veil a little bit with this video. It's going to be very personal. I'm reading it out. It's not prescripted. I'm reading it from my notes like that. I wanted to capture the most ridiculous ideas about how to figure out what to do with your life, and also the steps that I took that helped me find coaching in the end. Step number one on my journey was the recognition that something was wrong. We think about knowing we're unhappy in a way that's like, I know that, but then what am I supposed to do with it? So we want to jump away straight away. It's like, I don't want to think about not being happy because that's not going to help me. I want to think about how to fix it. Give me tools, give me techniques, give me strategies, give me tips. Now we're talking. But the reality of it is the recognition that you do not feel good in your life, that something is missing, or you have too much of something, or you don't belong here, you're not at the right place. That recognition is super important. So this is where your process will start. The recognition, the realization within yourself that life is not great the way it is for you right now. Step number two was when I started to discover how I felt. This feels like a really weird thing to say, to discover how you feel, but I'm going to explain in a second why. Saying that you're unhappy, that you're stuck, that your life is not going anywhere, or that you're in the wrong place, these are words and expressions that are really vague. How do you solve unhappiness? You can't. Really, you can't. It's not a lack of happiness or unhappiness is not a solvable problem. It is a statement, and it's a really good statement to start off with, but it's not something you can solve because it's not specific enough. So the second step for me, that's why I call it discover your emotions, was when I needed to go deeper and find out how I actually felt in my life at the time. I was stuck in a corporate job. I didn't feel like I was making any sort of a difference. I pretty much felt very just off purpose, not have a lot of meaning in my life, just doing this mechanical life of going into work, doing the job, coming home, spend the money, go to work again, come home, spend the money, go to work again. And I really started to question where my life was going with this. I find that most of the time, when we start questioning our current life, it starts with work, because work takes up a lot of time in our day, and therefore it is a place where it's the easiest to notice if something is wrong in your life, if you're not going to the right direction. That's the one that's going to be kind of like a mirror and say, this is not good, you need to change it. Later on, you may realize that you need to change other areas of your life. It's not just your work. There's maybe relationships. It's maybe how you spend your time. It might be lots of different other elements of it. But work very often is the first one to emerge and the first one to draw attention to itself. Once I started to explain my being stuck and unhappy with other words like wanting to make a difference and not feeling fulfilled and not feeling on purpose, then came the third step, which was I realized that it was not enough to just say these words to me. This still didn't mean anything. I needed to make sense of how I felt. One thing that was very difficult for me to do in the beginning was that I had this job and I felt really not great in it at the time. I wanted to get out. I wanted to do something that I enjoyed, something that I personally cared about at the bottom of my heart and soul, not just intellectually, like I'm doing this work for money, but something that really resonated with me in a deeper way. And I had a hard time reconciling that the job was great. It was a great company, exciting job, not crazy hours considering it was finance. I was working a lot with very nice people and very smart people. So on paper, the job was fine. So I wanted to talk about that because you might find on your own journey that what you are thinking about moving away from is actually other people's dream. And you might have this really uncomfortable feeling like, am I crazy thinking about giving this up? So that was for me. I think making sense, that's why I called it a separate step, because making sense of how you feel sometimes can take time and take some effort. There was a point when I even started to question my own sanity, like something must be wrong with me. This is not normal. The best advice that I would have given to myself, if I could, was to accept your emotions. That's what I would have said to myself. To accept. We can go into a lot of these loops of, but you shouldn't feel this way, you're not supposed to feel this way, this is a great job, you are ungrateful. But in reality, how you feel always signals something to you. How you feel tells you whether you're in the right place or not. And just because on paper it is a good job doesn't mean it's the right job for you at the time. Step 4. I wrote down something. When the student is ready, the teacher emerges. This was the step when I started venturing out of my normal corporate life. My normal corporate life pretty much looked like this. I woke up, I had my breakfast at home while I was already thinking about the meetings I was going to have. Then I had a knot in my stomach, feeling like I'm still in this job. I'm still not making a real difference. I feel like I'm wasting my life away. I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something different. And I'm still not there yet, and I still have no idea what it is. So I'm like crazy behind in life, and this is horrible. Then I went into work, then kind of the first meeting happened, then the second meeting, and life just carried me, work just carried me through the day. And at the end of the day, what did I do? I went shopping. I don't really remember a lot of days when I would have left the office, gone home, and read or something. No, that was part of the mental story I was running. It's like, yes, this job is not great for me. I'm not happy in it. I don't feel fulfilled. I don't feel like I'm on purpose, but I make a lot of money and I can buy a designer handbag if I so wished. And I did wish that a lot. I realized that I needed to step away from this lifestyle, talking about corporate stuff with people who also worked in corporate, and go shopping and just try and survive this monotonous thing that was going nowhere. So that was the time when I started reading and purposefully seeking out stuff I never would have read and I never would have listened to before. Now, if you're going through this process now, there's a lot more available online. In around 2008, there wasn't that much available. 2009, 10, YouTube already existed, but there weren't a lot of stuff on this. What was really big around the time was blogs. So I started reading blogs, Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek, and various different blogs that my friend, who was interested in personal development at the time, showed me. She was my first way into some of these articles and blogs and books, and I started reading these things. And they didn't, at the time, there was no relationship between, okay, I'm reading an article about how to work for yourself, and I'm in a corporate job. So what does that mean for me? I didn't know. There was no connection. And I think it's important to talk about, because in the beginning, as you are trying to figure out what to do instead of what you're currently doing, you're going to need to go into a different space. So if you are with scientists and you are not sure whether you want to work in science anymore, then just don't stay with scientists, because that's going to make it harder for you to see some sort of an alternative. So it's read, listen to as much stuff as you possibly can that takes you further and further. So it allows you to make your boundaries larger, to not just go like, this is my life, and we all have a boundary around our lives, but to go larger and say, okay, let me see what's out there. That was this step number 4 for me. That sort of exploration, reading stuff, listening to stuff, talking to people who were not like me. It opened up my mind a little bit. I didn't know where that was leading me to, and that's super important to understand. If you are looking for the connection between, okay, I'm gonna listen to this podcast, or I'm gonna watch this YouTube video, but I don't know how that's gonna help me. In the beginning, you will not know that yet, but you need to trust the process a little bit, that if your interest is taking me to a certain direction, then there is something at least for you to get from that. Step 5 for me was accepting that I wanted more. Now, you might be the type of person who's like, yes, of course I want more. That's just natural. That's not how it went for me. How it went for me was that I felt a really deep-rooted guilt and shame about wanting to get out of corporate and do something different with my life. I just felt like I invested so much on my corporate path, on my corporate career, and now the possibility that I would leave and just throw that away just felt like so wasteful and so ungrateful. That's how I felt. It really took me a long time to accept what I was feeling, to not constantly torpedo myself like, but you shouldn't feel this way, and this is horrible, you're a horrible person, you're just a horrible person, which was stuff that I was thinking at the time. And to just accept that maybe I have a higher need for self-expression and contributing beyond myself and making a difference than other people. Accepting how you feel in a world that tells you how you should live your life is a really big step, and it was an actual physical step for me. I remember the time when I first realized, you know what, maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay that I want this. Maybe it's perfectly legitimate to have a need to feel better. Step number 6 was I started to connect with a younger part of me. I don't know whether that step is necessarily going to apply to everyone who's going through a similar journey, but it definitely applied to me. It was that I remember the type of feelings that were started to come up now, the feelings that I accepted for a more exciting life and to do something that I actually cared about. I noticed that I remember that I had those feelings and emotions when I was little. So when I was 5 and 6 and 7, I could go back in my memories and remember that I wanted to be excited to go to work and I wanted to enjoy what I was doing. As a child, it's unthinkable for you to do something that you don't like. And later on, as you grow older, you kind of give that up. And there was a point for me when I could reconnect with a younger part of me and say, yes, I always wanted to do stuff that's exciting, and I always wanted to do things I was really good at and I really cared about. And that to me just somehow felt significant, to not look at it like, oh, this thing that I no longer want to do corporate work just kind of popped up. It just popped up, just out of nowhere it came. But to see that it was always part of my journey. It was always part of who I was. That was important. Step 7 is the decision. There was a very clear point in time when I made the decision that I was going to go after work I loved, that I was going to change my life. The decision, the way we express decision making is that I made a decision or someone has taken a decision. So we experience it and we articulate it in very active ways. Like, I am a person who is making a decision. But how it went for me, or how I experienced it at the time, was that it's almost like the decision at some point just emerged. That one morning or one afternoon, I can't remember what it was, but one moment it was just, oh, I'm going to do this. Like the decision was no longer there and suddenly it was there, but there was no making of the decision in between, if that makes sense. I think it will make sense to you. So at some point the decision was there. The reason I want to elaborate a little bit on this is because we think of decision as something, as soon as I decided I leave corporate, I just leave corporate, I resign that day or I storm out, and then I'm left in this nothingness, like, okay, what next? Like, what am I going to do next? The decision to leave corporate does not have to coincide with the moment when you resign. It doesn't. In most cases, it's not. Decision is super important because as soon as you make a decision, you're going to feel lighter inside. Even if it hasn't manifested, even if you still have to go into corporate the next day or the next week, it's still going to feel better because it will feel like you have taken charge of your life. That you're no longer suffering, you're no longer waiting, you're no longer enduring the pain, but now you have taken some sort of a step towards a better future. That's what it felt like to me. But it doesn't mean that you have to walk away the same day. The decision has a different significance. I think the biggest part of knowing that decision and identifying that decision inside of you is not that you act on it like that straight away, but now you do know where you're going. Now you have some sort of a destination. While before it just felt like this is horrible, but I have no idea what's next. Now you kind of know what's next, and then you can channel all your energy towards that direction. Step 8 for me, what I really wanted to call it a shiny object syndrome, but I thought that was maybe a little bit too cynical. Let's call it tools, strategies, methods, and all that sort of tell me where I'm going with this. Once I had taken the decision to leave corporate, I jumped into all these find your strengths, identify your types, these tools and quizzes that will tell you you're this type of a person and this is easy for you and this is difficult for you. And these are the 5 strengths you have that you can build your career on, that type of thing. I got a little bit obsessed with that. Why? Because I was working in corporate and I was an accountant. So my headspace was very much in, if it's not measurable, it doesn't exist type of thing. So I went a little too left brain on that, looking back, absolutely, thinking like, if I do this test and if I do this quiz and if I find out which type out of the 16 or the 12 or the 5 or the how many I am, then that's going to tell me what I'm going to do instead. So once I leave corporate, what's going to be the next thing? The strengths finders and the motivation finders and all kinds of different tools that are out there, they're going to tell me where to go. Now, I am not criticizing these. These give me really interesting insights, and there were a lot of things I didn't know about myself that I found out from these. But to think that your life's direction is going to come from a test or from a quiz or from a summary or from a report, that is one thing we need to stop believing, because that is never going to happen. So I have my strengths, I have my little categorizations, and this is which one I am from this methodology, and this is who I am in this methodology, and and I did all that, and I was still sitting like, okay, but so what does that mean? That neither of these things are an actual job. They are not an actual path. Step number 9 was when I realized that there is more searching involved in this. That it's not enough to just know what I already found out from the tools, then there need to be something. So I started searching for the following sentence. How do I find the purpose of my life? That's what I was searching for. There wasn't that much happening in that space at the time, not compared to what's available today. But there were a couple of blogs and a couple of resources. So I remember one Friday night as I finished working from home, I went on Google and I put in how to find the purpose of my life. And there were a couple of things that were coming up. I was just scrolling through everything until I found one thing that caught my attention. I found a coaching course. Now, a coaching course, I thought, was for people who wanted to be coaches, and I was definitely not a person who wanted to be a coach. It never even occurred to me that I could be a coach one day. I didn't even understand what coaching was necessarily, but if someone had told me I was going to be a coach, I would have said, you lost your mind. That's one thing I'm never going to be. So step number 10 is something I call external exploration. There comes a time when you need to take what you have learned and what you know about yourself and you start exploring actual physical options. What sort of jobs are there out there? What sort of different new industries emerging? I mean, now that the internet has gone wild, it's the type of, there are new jobs created every day. People create new jobs for themselves constantly. So now it's a constantly moving thing. It was already back then, but now it's 100 million times more true. So there is an element when you need to get out there and you need to experience things. And I'm going to tell you in a second why. So I was looking at the description of this coaching course, and it was explaining that this is not a theoretical course. It's not like you get a huge book, you learn it, and then you know coaching in theory. But this is very much based on actual experience. So you would spend 90% of your time coaching or something like that, and then some time to make sense of what you learned, correct your mistakes, but a big majority would be for you to actually coach. So I was thinking, so that might be quite an interesting course for me to go to. I was thinking very much like finance brain. If one person is practicing coaching, there has to be another person who is the pretend client. So I was thinking I could probably get some good coaching out of it. So if I go for a couple of days for this course, the first course, the fundamental of the coaching course that I took was 2.5 days at the time. So I thought 2.5 days, I would get a lot of coaching. I could bring my topics. I have no idea what I want to do with my life. I have no idea what the purpose of my life is. I have no idea where I'm supposed to be going. But maybe as some people are practicing coaching because they want to be coaches, they could help me in the process, and I might find something, an insight or a little bit of a sparkle that will help me figure out the direction. Experience the thing that you went to. So as you start exploring and you decide, I'm going to do this course, I'm going to go to that seminar, I'm going to go and speak to that person, this is where the rubber hits the road. When I went onto the coaching course and I saw what the coaches were doing, they started the day by showing a little bit of a coaching to us, when one teacher, one facilitator, one coach was the client, the other one was the coach, and the coach coached the client. And as I watched it, something literally went off in my body. There was the physical experience that said, yes, this is really cool. You want to be doing this. You want to be doing this for the rest of your life. This is how I felt. Why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because there is that craziness out there that you can think about jobs. There is absolutely no way I would have said yes to coaching. So if I had done a test at the time and the test comes out, your strengths are this and this and this, and you are very good at jobs like this and this and this, and a good career for you would be coaching, I would have thrown that piece of paper out. I would have said, there's absolutely no way. I don't know how to do coaching. I come from finance. I'm good with numbers. I'm good with processes. I'm not good with people. That was a belief in my head. It's like, I'm not a people person. I can't do coaching. There's no way I can do coaching. So in order for things to click, you need to experience them. You have to experience them. This is a step that you're not going to be able to skip 100%. If you do a lot of inner exploration, but you do no external exploration, you don't go to courses, you don't go and meet new people, you don't try things, then you are going to be left with a lot of theoretical knowledge and no idea whatsoever what to do with them. Getting out there, testing yourself, seeing, ooh, I was quite interested in that, or ooh, that was horrible, I never want to do that again, ever in this life, it was horrendous. That is how you are getting closer and closer to what you're supposed to do with your life. Figuring out what you're supposed to do, it's not this hypothetical exercise that you do inside your head. You cannot draw a line here and use this part only. You have to come down here. Why? Because finding what you're supposed to be doing is about happiness. And where do you feel happiness? Well, not up here. Happiness is excitement. You feel it in the body, we call it in coaching. You feel the excitement, you feel the resonance here. You're not going, oh yeah, coaching, I guess. I mean, yes, it sounds like a reasonable idea. No, that's not how it happened. You need to feel the passion and you need to feel the excitement. Or you need to feel a little bit of a thing inside of you that says, I could do this. I could do this for a living and I would really enjoy this. If someone had said to me, I would be a coach, I honestly would have dismissed them. I would have said, no, I can't be a coach because of this and this and this and this. And that just shows that sometimes the right answer can come to you in the wrong packaging. If people try to give you the right answer, sometimes you don't take it because there's not enough resonance, there's not enough excitement around it for you to recognize it as a positive answer. The way we know that something is working for us is that we feel good about this. The same way, when you go into work and you feel stuck and unhappy, how do you know this is not working for you? Because you feel it. Feelings are super important on this journey. Without being connected to your feelings, you're never going to get anywhere because you are just going to be stuck in your mind, stuck in your head, thinking about the different scenarios and just getting more and more lost each day. When you feel excitement, when you feel interest, when you feel maybe it's just a little bit of a pull towards something, that's how you know it's the right path. But that pull, that resonance, that excitement is not something you can feel thinking about the same stuff. So being on the coaching course, actually seeing what coaching can do, experiencing it myself as a client, also practicing, because sometimes I was a coach practicing, it gave me something for my body to respond to. Something like, this is great, that's what I want to do. That was it for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you found it helpful, give it a like and subscribe for more similar videos in the future. See you next time.